Okay guys, what's up? You guys know everything's been going pretty crazy lately with the Gladiator and getting it on the channel and off the channel and stuff. Well, I'm trying to basically keep up with work and get the Gladiator ready. That entails a lot. And when I mean a lot, I just finished the front bumper. I'm sure you guys have all seen it on some of the new videos I put out, but I finished that. A lot of the stuff we're waiting for because so much stuff is back ordered. Right now, you can see right there, I'm working on a bumper for the back of this guy, and you can see I Frenched in the front factory fog lights to use as reverse lights, and then of course the factory hooks. Anyway, I'm piece welding on that, and I don't want it to get too hot, so you kind of work through the long welds and seam welds, so I'm going to be doing some other things. So that being said, right there, things are starting to show up now for the Gladiator, and I have a trip coming up. We're going to do Colorado the 16th of this month, and we're going to run 2 rigs. We're going to run a Gladiator, and then we're going to run my friend's, gosh, I look terrible, but welding. I'm going to run, or my friend is going to run his Ranger. So anyway, I'm slowly getting the stuff for the Gladiator to show up. The lift still out on that, and there's a few other parts that I'm still out on, but Artec was super good to me and was able to get this truss kit out. So I talked with them, and I've got a truss kit now that I'm going to go ahead and do front and back on this. I'm still waiting for the RCVs. They've shipped, but the actual outer seal units haven't shipped, so that'll be a work in progress. And then right above it, you see that is the Apex steering boost kit. Now, supposedly, this is going to be a competitor for some of the redneck Ram stuff, and then some of the PSC stuff. Now, the complaint is that the electric pumps overheat when you raise the pressure in them, but that's what it comes. The Apex kit comes with a cooler on it to help battle that. Now, I did see a comparison on another person's channel, Exodus Jeep, where he basically put, you know, redneck Ram system up against the Apex, and they had the same capabilities as far as what they were able to do with the field test in his parking lot, putting tire against tire, trying to force them away from each other. So I'm excited for that because I had the redneck Ram in the JL on, I call it a hydroelectric over electric assist. It was good. So I'm hoping that's going to be the same thing. So anyway, I'm going to cover some of the truss stuff, and then I'm going to show you some of the mock-up work and kind of let you guys see what goes on to putting these things in. If you're a welder or a fabricator, this is something that you could really do on your own. Remember, you just spot weld, you weld in pieces across it, back and forth, and then give it a rest. Let it cool down. If you've done more than 16 spot welds, let it rest for 10 or 15 minutes, come back to it. But anyway, that's what I did with the JL, and it came out fine, no cracking. All the welds held real well. I'll do it on the front as well here, but that's what I've got going. I'm gonna get some stuff set up. I'm gonna get some stuff unboxed, and then I'll pick back up when I get the Jeep in position and ready for mock-up. Stay tuned. Okay, so I got the box open, and so what I've got here is I've got a couple quick weld-on reinforcement brackets for your lower control arms, front and back. These will help keep the joints together. Lots of rocks tend up banging the bottom to death, and then anytime you change your control arms or need to work on them, they lock up and they're hard to get in and out. So just starting off with these, they're pretty cheap, and it's something super smart, easy to do, because again, once you get them on there and weld them across and seam them in, they really protect that joint and really stop it from deforming across rocks. And obviously the way the JL is built, the JT's built, they tend to drag, and so why not just now in the stock form, before I get them too torn up, why don't I just go ahead and support them? So that's what I'm going to do here. That's those. Then let's see what else we got here. And guys, if you're any kind of welder, this is stuff that you could really do. You just take your time. That's the biggest deal about it. You know, the biggest thing that I would stress to you guys is just to take your time. when I'm doing any kind of fab work or anything, you know, axle and stuff related, I just do it slowly and make sure that, you know, I'm taking the time and it's not a race, because again, this is the stuff that really matters. Obviously, when you're worried about drying and stuff like that, and the weld's cooling, you don't want anything to crack, anything such like that. So again, just be mindful about what you're doing. And so you can see here's part of the truss coming together. So this, I believe, is going to be the front truss. So these are the pieces for the front truss. These are the side, on the either side of your pumpkin. This is your center housing. What else do we have? Oh. Now these are going to be the front end inner seat gussets. That's what these bad boys are. That's what these are. And this, obviously, you can see what this does. It goes on the side of your seat, the upper and lower part, and supports them, because obviously they went to a beefier seat, but that's where now they're seeing weak links between the FAD and then of course on the C's, on the outer C's. And so this will help reinforce that and take care of some of that flex. That's what both of these are. So left and right side up front. And then this big guy, I'm assuming, gosh, and I'll tell you this, Synergy does not waste any money or skimp on their packaging. Because I'll tell you, you know, there's about 1,000 staples in this thing, making it almost impossible to get into. But at the same time, keeps it from falling apart on you during shipping, because we all know those guys, you know, really take care of your stuff. Yes, it is. So here is the coveted rear axle truss. Pretty neat. All single piece, and the way they built the construction on it and seam it together. Oh, I just got horsepower. There's 2 of them. That's 25 a piece. That's 50 horsepower. I'm happy. So anyway, you know, most of this stuff, I'll fit it to the axle first in a test fit. I'll mark everything with a paint pen on the axle to where I know where I need to grind, and I'll show you guys that in the video. But then all these pieces right here, I'll kind of tack them together, and when I say tack, I mean on each flange I'll make a tack, and that's about it. That way there's some rigidity to it, and then I'll go ahead and put it on the axle housing and see how it sits. And anything that I need to manipulate a little bit, I can tap with a hammer to bend it down or up or whatever it needs to be. But therefore, most stuff stays where it needs to stay. And then I'll go ahead and hit a couple tacks again before I remove it off, because that's the way it likes to sit. And then after I'm done there, I'll pull it off. I'll seam all these off of the Jeep. And then you can see them here. I'll seam this kind of stuff and all these. And then once I've done that, I'll go ahead and put it on and weld it in. Now, what's neat about it is the way they build this truss. There's a flat part. And that flat part, for, you know, potentials in the future, if you ever went to 3-link your rear end, now you've got a flat brace area to put something on. So you can, this is where you can run your high mounts, or, you know, Johnny joint mounts, or all your mounts for your 3rd link. So it kind of sets you up for the future, which is nice. And so you have a peace of mind knowing that your axle's trussed and reinforced, and at the same time, you've got the ability to move into the future with something like this. Now, kind of what I'll do, front and back, because I'm going to do the back first, but what I'll do is I'll get this in place and I'll mark it and I'll get it to see where it likes to sit naturally. And then I'll go ahead and mark that with a paint pen. Then I'll pull it out. I'll go ahead and weld all these things like I was telling you, and then I'll paint it. The one thing I won't do though is this leading edge, sorry, let me move back. these leading edges right here, that'll be mounting up to the actual axle housing. And here, what I'll do is I'll leave my tape where there's probably, you know, something like 1/4 of an inch of metal showing before the base of it. That way I can paint the rest of it and paint the inside, what you can't paint once it's mounted. So I'll paint most of all of this. But then when I go ahead and am ready to put it on the truck and weld it, I won't have to do any grinding on this piece, because I'll still leave 1/4 inch of bare metal to actually sit on the metal of the axle and paint and then weld in. And then from there, all it's doing is touching up along the edges where I did the welding. So anyway, let me kind of get this set up. I'm letting that bumper cool down a little bit. I'm gonna get this jacked up, get the Jeep ready, and then get in a position where I can get in there and kind of show you guys this and set this on the actual housing so you see what it looks like. And in the meantime, get some popcorn or something, get a snack. I'm gonna do a couple seam welds on the bumper and then prepare this, and then we'll go back. See you in a second. Okay, you guys can kind of see what's going on. I've got the back jacked up and I've got the droop, back axle drooped all the way down to kind of give me the most clearance I need. This is something that you could take it out. You don't have to. Again, this is gonna be the second time I've done it on this same kind of platform. I did it on the JT, I mean on the JL, and I didn't have to take it out. I was just real careful about what I did and how I went about it. So, again, you can see that there's some mud and stuff under here. Let me clean it real quick, and then I'll get into placing the truss and showing you guys kind of what it looks like. So, now that I'm on here, there's a couple things you're gonna need to do. You're gonna need something like this, a flathead screwdriver, a trim tool. There's a couple of these starlit Christmas tree fittings that go into the top of the differential. And what it does, it just holds the locker cable in place. So you're gonna need to remove those, get this bad boy off here. Sometimes they're easy and sometimes they're not, so just give it the old college try. Get them out of there. Now, down here there's a pin. You slip the pin back, and once you slip that pin back, you should at that point be able to take the fitting out. Now again, be super careful. This controls your lockers. You do not want to be without your lockers, I assure you. Then you just want to get this out of the way. I'm going to go up here and tuck it up here. It works just fine. The next thing you're going to need to do is grab some pliers and pull this vent tube. Now, you can see that this is the vent tube for the rear axle. So, not a big deal here. You're just gonna move this ring clip up. And then once you've done that, pop the thing up. And again, I like to go in the same place with the cables I pull off. That way, when I reach for this one, I now see the other one there as well, or however many there would be. You would see, so you don't forget when you're going back together with things to, oh, I didn't put my vent tube on, because I promise you this, you go in water like this and you're gonna have issues really, really quickly. So make sure that you get that drain tube reconnected as soon as you can. Now, here's this guy. So Artec orientates the drain or the actual air breather tube on this side, and you see the hole that's already made for it. So it's pretty simple to understand how this thing orientates on the axle. So I do see is that this is exactly how it should be. The problem with it is, guys, the vent tube for this rear axle on a JT is over here, and on a JL it's over here. So obviously I'm gonna have to make a hole on this side to compensate for that. But now you can see what I was talking about. And I mean, it's super snug as it sits now. So now you can see exactly where you're gonna have to touch this up. So you'll know that once you see this line, and let me get my paint pen to illustrate for you guys. Be easier to tell. And I'll kind of pull you guys in, but I think now you can kind of better understand how well this thing fits in here. They do it's all CAD drawn, and so they do an incredible job of laying this in here. And so you can see that it goes all the way to the spring perches on each side, and what it really does is it ensures your axle tubes don't spin in the housing, which used to happen. And then again, at the same time, it supports the entire weight of this because it's a longer vehicle. They figure there's going to be more weight in the back. You tow it with it, you haul it with it. So this will help the down pressure be opposed with this truss. And again, like I was saying, it still gives you a flat spot because up here, you can still run a 3-link. Look, all you need to do is relocate this depth canister, and you can still fit a 3-link in here. So be mindful of that. So let me go ahead and get it marked, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I pull it off. Okay, we're back. So now you can kind of see what it is, how it's set up. I'm going to get my pen and assume that vent tube is in this area somewhere. And I'm going to go ahead and mark that out so I can remove it. But now you can see that there's not a whole lot of welding. This is more what we call like stitch welding. And the neat thing about it is, we'll take this out, and you can see where I drew the opposing hole to this hole. So that's okay, not a big deal. But anyway, what I was telling you is this is more stitch style welding. Now I'll weld on each one of these knuckleheads that you see, but it's not a great deal of strength that you add just by these knuckle holds, but it's good to have. And so I'll seam all this way around and all the way around again. And then in the back, let me see if I can do it. It's kind of hard to see, but there's actually more welding surface back on the back side that you actually see. And if you look at it closely, you can see that it basically goes up and around the pumpkin. And so that'll be just added strength. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do. I think other than that, you guys understand. You take a flap disc or a grinder or something, and you're going to remove the paint everywhere you're going to weld. And remove it to 1/2 inch on each side of where you're going to weld. And so there's no contaminants in it, and you get good welds. But the next thing I'm going to do in this project is go ahead and tear down the paint and get it off and get it out of my way. And then once that's done, then I'll come back and kind of show you when I've actually placed it on and done some spot welds, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But other than that, it's self-explanatory. I'll get that done and get it in. I need to paint it, so obviously this is going to take a little time. I'll need to paint it first before I put it up. But you know, leave me comments in the comments below. I'm going to do the front one as well. But if you want me to go in more depth on, you know, actually placing the sea gussets in and how it actually works, I think from this video you can kind of understand how it's done, and it really gives you an easy idea and understanding to go ahead and do it on your own. Like I said, if you can weld, take it slow, and like I said, don't let it get too hot. And you want to go from front to back. So I'll do a tack here and a tack here and a tack here, and maybe one of these and one of these and one of these, one of these, and then I'll jump to the back side and do 1, 1, 1, and then I'll just let the rear end sit for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I'll do the kind of the same thing. I'll come back and I'll start again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let it rest another 20 minutes or so. Just because you never want it to overheat itself. And then the one thing I would suggest you guys do is I have a welding blanket. It's not incredibly necessary in this situation. You're not doing a lot of static seam welds, so you're not getting it ultra hot. But Nevertheless, I will spot weld and throw the blanket on it, spot weld, throw the blanket on it, and just kind of let it cool down slowly. The biggest thing, what I was always taught, was that you don't want to get any one piece of metal too hot. So with me stitch welding it, it's never really going to get extremely hot. And so the cool down process won't be such an extreme change from ambient temperature now to, you know, welding temperature. And so it's 101 outside, it's probably 90 in here. So all the metal is real warm to touch. So it's close to warm now. And so I'll just use it, I'll work upon that and just kind of slowly stitch weld it around until it's always fully seated in and I'm happy with it. So anyway, stay tuned, guys. All right, hey guys, I'm down here. This is an extended break, just so you guys know. I ended up running out of wire for the welder and some of the nozzles and the tips, so I need to go get that. So anyway, this is, you know, probably 2 hours later. But anyway, I got in here and started to do this work. What I noticed was the sway bar is actually in the way to do some of the grinding. So just so you guys know, you will have to remove the sway bar to get the proper amount of grinding done on the axle. So just so you know, and just start there. It's not like it's a big deal. It's, I think, 2, 4, 6 bolts total. Unbolts comes right off. It's super easy. So, nevertheless, 18mm socket. We'll knock this out and then move on. See you shortly. Now you can see we have plenty of room to work with. I can get in here, get across here, get across the face of these, and then of course on the back side there's not much in my way. I'm not going to seam weld all the way across the pumpkin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stitch weld it as well, just because there's really no need to time the pumpkin that dramatically. So I would figure that the spot welds here, there's 4 of them, and then I'll do probably 4 equal on the back, and then of course the perches should be enough to stabilize this entire unit. So anyway, that's what I got going, guys. Now see, this is what I'm telling you guys, it doesn't take much. The seam is probably right there, so I just try to do about a full inch wide to give it plenty of room. So we'll have it stitched, we'll have this across here, we'll have a full seam across here, and then of course, like I said, we're going to touch one of these knuckles with one, and that'll make 4 separate parts to tie into it. And then of course we'll have one here, the one up and around, the same thing on the back, and then I'm just going to do a quarter, probably a quarter stitch right there, and just tie it all in. And like I said, this is really just to give some rigidity to this Dana 44. It's the wide HD, so they definitely made it beefier and made it with bigger axle tubes and stuff and made it more resilient. But considering we're going to be always towing a trailer and I'm always going to have more weight in the back, I just want to take this precaution, because why not? For the minimal amount of money it is and the minimal amount of work it is to put it in for that kind of reassurance, why wouldn't you? So anyway, let's get cracking. Okay, so you guys can kind of see what it looks like finished up. Now this is just the rear truss on a JT, but it's super similar to a JL. But you can see, all in all, it's about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour job. Everything's connected back. Vent hoses are back in place with the new hole that I had to create, opposing the one that came from Artec, which obviously would fit a JL. On a JT, you're going to have to replace or remake a new one for the actual breather hose, but that's not a big deal. Anyway, up and around, across here, tack, 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 seam, seam, and the same thing on the back side, and that'll be more than all you need. Anyway, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to paint up your grinding spots where you put your grounds. And remember, when welding across bearings, do not weld across bearings. If you're welding on this side of the axle, on this side of the bearings, make a ground spot over here, weld your stuff over here, and then when you have to move and weld over here, make sure you move your ground over here. That way you're not pulling current through bearings and creating hard spots or potential bearing fatigue. So anyway, thanks guys, I appreciate you watching, and stay tuned for the next one. We'll see you.